I don't have enough time to work on my music or to finish my songs, for music in general. This is one of the most common responses that I get from self-recording artists when I ask them what they're struggling with the most. And I want to unpack this. So let's talk about this. And if this is you, we want to help you find a way to work on your music consistently and just do more of what you love doing the most, which is probably music, or at least it's probably pretty high up there in your priorities. Even if you have a busy life, that's the goal for this episode, to help you find time for your music, because I think a very high percentage of our listeners is having that kind of problem. Because if you're not a full-time musician, if you're not a full-time pro at this, you're gonna struggle at some point with the time issue. You have a job, you have a life, you have a family, you have friends, social life, hobbies, and you still want to get to music, and sometimes it's just hard and your projects just never get done and it feels frustrating, and we see this response all the time. So my name is Benedikt. I'm a mixing engineer. I run a mixing studio called Outback Recordings, and I mix a lot of songs. I've done this for the past 15 years full time. We mix hundreds of songs for many, many artists and labels worldwide. And all the lessons that we've learned from these projects, producing and now full-time mixing, we share this on this podcast, this whole platform, the Self-Recording Band. We're also working with artists in our coaching program, where we help them one-on-one and in a group setting achieve their goals, find time for their music, and ultimately release their music or just capture it for themselves. Yeah, so welcome. If you're new to the show, this is the right place if you want to make better recordings from your jam spaces and home studios. And if you're already a listener, you know all this stuff, welcome back. I'm here, as always, with my friend and co-host, Manel Espinosa Berenguer from Madrid. Hello, Manel. How are you?
Hello, Benedikt. And yeah, I was thinking that you said from Madrid, but soon it will be from Alicante.
Alicante, yeah. Originally from Alicante, now Madrid, and then soon back in Alicante again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as I always say, I'm Manel Espinosa, and I'm a mixing engineer and a music producer from Spain that loves helping artists, bringing their songs from demo to finished amazing level. So yeah, here we are.
Here we are. All right. Great to be doing this again. Before we get to this episode, and I promise I want to be quick today, but like just a little fun thing I want to share with you. I got a very thoughtful email today from one of our subscribers, or I guess no more subscribers now. Where I always send out our episodes via email, and the one I sent today was the one about what I call the number one beginner mistake that people make, which is I want to finish 50 songs in 1 month for like $50 or something, the unrealistic expectations in terms of time and budget and everything. And I talked about that in the episode, and I sent that out today via email. And like 30 seconds after I sent out the email, I got a response back, and the whole response was just, "What a bunch of shit." So, yeah, I already checked. Person is unsubscribed, which is totally fine, of course. Yeah, fun times. You send out stuff, try to help people, and you get responses like that. But we appreciate it, so please send us your mail, positive or negative. I really appreciate it. Just wanted to share that with you. So, on the whole timing topic, though, this is a very important one to me, because every time when people reach out to, when they apply for a coaching spot, or they just send us emails asking questions, or when I talk to the artists that I'm working with at the studio, time is oftentimes a big problem, especially for the ones not doing it full time. And I get it. And I remember it was the same for me. When I started, I never had a day job, so music was all I've ever done. But still, when I was still in school, when I was going when I was touring with my band and all of that, there were always other things in life also, and finding time for the stuff that was really important to me was always a struggle, and still is in a way today. Just things have shifted to other problems, but time is always a problem. So I want to talk about that. The thing is, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And so why is it then that some people have so much on their plate and still find time for music? Because we also have these in the coaching program, but also in our listeners' audience. Why is it that some people can manage that and find a way to do that, while others are working on the same song for months and can't seem to finish it? This is what I want to unpack today. So first, I want to know, Manel, Have you ever been in a situation, maybe before this was your job, where you wished you had more time to make music, to write music, but something always seemed to get in the way? Have you ever been in this situation?
Well, I've always said that I would love the days to be 48 hours instead of 24. But yeah, I never had that problem because I've always found time for music even when I wasn't you know, working as a music producer. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. That's good. I think we should start this whole thing by asking, who do you compare yourself to, and what is actually your goal? And I'm saying this because if you are a hobby musician and you have a career, a day job outside of music, you have a family, social life, and all of that, then if you compare your music quote unquote results, whatever you want to call it, like whatever comes out of your computer, your DAW, or like the music projects you're working on, if you compare that, like how it sounds and what you can achieve with that, if you compare that to your favorite artists and bands and people who have a career in music, then we're kind of comparing apples to oranges. And it can be very frustrating and dangerous, and also just mentally like exhausting, because you only have a little bit of time on the side, while these people you're comparing yourself to, that's all they do all the time. And so let's start by doing like a fair comparison. Maybe and we all can't help but compare ourselves. I wish we wouldn't compare ourselves at all, but most of us like have idols or things that we think are cool, and we tend to compare our results to others. And so I think we should start with a fair comparison. Maybe it makes more sense to say, what did these people do before they got successful? What did they do when they had problems maybe finding time for music, when they had a day job? Or how did they even start getting into this? When was the point when they went all in on this? And like just looking at the journey and not so much where they are now. So this is one thing. And then the other thing is, what's the goal? Like, is it even important to you to have a career in music, or to have successful songs, like commercial success? Or is it important to you to just capture it for yourself and be really happy with it and proud of it? And both are absolutely fantastic goals, but they require different amounts of work and also time that you set aside for this. If the goal is that you just want to have that one record finally captured, or that one song, or just you enjoy the process, you love doing it on the side, and there's no clear like commercial goal or anything like that, then maybe it's okay that you move slower and that you only have a little bit of time, and you can just enjoy the process still, and just don't put that much stress on you. But maybe if your goal is to have a career and to get your band to a level where you actually build a fan base, you can go on tour, you have like hundreds of thousands of listeners, maybe, I don't know, then it requires a completely different approach and much more time that you dedicate to this. So I think you should ask yourself this question, like, what is the goal? What am I actually trying to achieve, and who am I comparing myself with? And maybe that already takes away a lot of the stress, right? And I can only, since I never had the problem with music, I can still relate in other areas of life. Like, for example, exercising, working out, sports. That was always my on the side thing, where I compared myself to the best like runners when I was doing a lot of running, and I saw, you know, what the times they ran and like marathons and stuff, and I was struggling to put in the amount of work that would be required to get anywhere close to that level. And it's just okay to accept that I will never be a professional runner. Like, I don't have the talent. I started too late. I don't have the genetics, all of that. But even if I had, it's not my full-time job. I will never get there. You know, just like I will never be like, if I want to work out in the gym and I want to put on muscle, I will never be like super big, huge, jacked, whatever I want to be, if I don't fully focus on that. I will never be a professional bodybuilder or whatever, right? If that is not like, it's just unrealistic, and it's okay. I can still get in shape. I can still feel good about myself. I can still run races or whatever my sport is. But it's maybe healthier for me to not compare myself to professional athletes. And if I wanted to do that, I would have to have a completely different life and schedule and all of that, right? So This is maybe the first thing. Just let's remove some of the stress if it's unnecessary, and then let's stop the comparing. Now, do you ever find yourself saying, I don't have time, which most of the people say that in some situations, when in reality, I think it's not so much about having time, because everybody has the same 24 hours, but it's about like finding time or making time for things. So maybe you've had that situation where you wanted to do something and you said, I don't have time for this. But when you really think about it, maybe you could find some time, or you could make time by removing other things. Mm-hmm. That's probably been, I think, the case for everyone, right?
Yeah, now that I think about it, it happens to me with learning Japanese, because it's something that I've been doing for years, but I've never put enough time to really learn it. Like, I still dedicate like 10, 15 minutes a day to, go through a couple of lessons or watch something. I try to play video games in Japanese if I can and stuff like that. But I've never been like fully committed to do that. But I'm 100% conscious about it. Like, I know at this point in my life, I don't want to do it because maybe I want to dedicate more time to other things, and I just can't do everything. Like, for example, right now, like my artistic part, like my own music that I also like to write and record and stuff like that, I consider that to be something out of my working hours, so I only do it when I feel like doing it, and normally at night when I have time and stuff. So sometimes I just cannot write as many songs as I would like to write, or it takes me quite a while to finish one song, like the one we just finished that we will talk about in a while. In a while, I mean in some episodes, not today. So yeah, I think it's a matter of defining your priorities, right? Because, for example, I think there's also, at least from my point of view, there's a cultural aspect to all of this thing. Because at least in Spain and Ireland, which are the two countries that I've lived in for quite a while, people tend to do things like meet with their friends after work to get some coffee, or go to the pub and get some pints, right? It's a cultural thing. It's a thing that a lot of people do. It's kind of like printed in their DNA or something like that, So those are things that you don't have to do, right? So maybe you can remove some of that kind of things that maybe do not add a lot to your life, or maybe they do, or maybe you don't have to do that every day. You can do that instead of every day. You can do that 2 or 3 times a week and make space for other things. So are you willing? Are you prepared to do that? I think that's the question sometimes.
Yeah, totally. If something is truly important to you, you will have to give up other things that are not as important to you, because it's just impossible to do it all. And we get to the prioritizing part because it's really, really, really important. And everybody who has achieved any success in any field had to do this. Like, they all are really good at one thing, maybe 2 or 3 things, but not at the same time. Most of the people who are good at multiple things, they did one thing until they got really good at this. Then they moved to a different thing, and then they moved to a different thing. But very rarely, almost never, they built 3 things at once. Like, it's almost always a series of things and not like in parallel. And you just have to give up other things. And I know how you meant it, Manel, but just to make it clear, we're not saying you have to give up having coffee with your friends or whatever. That can add a lot to your life. And I think, in fact, as artists, we have a whole episode on this. I think we should have a life outside of music and audio, because that is what influences us and what we can then write about. If we don't experience life, we cannot create art. And so whatever you need to be a happy person, by all means do that. But I'm sure there are maybe some things that are that you don't need to be a happy person. And not everyone needs to go out and to the bar or have coffee all the time. Some people need it, others not so much. Some are introvert, others not so much, maybe everyone does things when you think about it. If you didn't do them, nothing would change really. So yeah, but it's the having time is like everybody has the same 24 hours. Finding time is looking at how you spend your time and then find gaps in there where you're like, okay, maybe there is actually an extra hour that I'm not really using at the moment. So I can maybe put music there. And making time is removing something so that there is time available for music. So there's that. It all starts with, so that to be able to even do that, I would say, and all of that sounds very trivial, I know, so I hope you're still with us. We get to more like maybe more advanced or actionable stuff later, but I think it's very important to talk about these seemingly trivial things. So to me, it all starts with actually having a calendar. And I'm fascinated by by the fact that so many people don't have a calendar at all in their life. And I was one of those too. Like I lived for a long time without a calendar and somehow survived, but also didn't really get anything done in that time. And so just having a simple calendar that you can look at, and even if you don't schedule your entire day, you don't have to do that. If you're not like a crazy busy person or a business owner or whatever, you don't have to live by a calendar. But just having general blocks of time or an idea of how you structure your time is really, really helpful, because that shows you, I guess there is only so much time, and I guess I have to fill it with meaningful things. And if you can look at this every once in a while, you can say, well, this is blocked off for work. There's nothing I can do. The evenings or whatever, this is family time, non-negotiable. These are other things that are important to me, like working out or whatever, non-negotiable. But here, there's actually this block of time every week or every day or whatever that I could actually use for music. And sometimes we only see that when we have it in front of us on a calendar and when we block out time for those things and when we then really ruthlessly just say no to everything else because that is our music time. And I would say if you are struggling with the time thing and you aren't using a calendar, that might be part of the problem. So try using a calendar in a very simple way and start by blocking out a simple single block, maybe once a week or so for music, and try to protect that and just really have an appointment with yourself and stick to that and just start consistently spending time working on your music and make sure that nothing is like getting in the way of that. So that's an easy thing that I would start with. Now, when you put that time on the calendar is not just a matter of like time management and moving all the pieces of your life on the calendar and the projects and stuff, but to me, it's also a lot about energy management, not so much time management, which means for a long time, didn't really pay attention to the different energy levels I had throughout the day and the different kinds of work I do best in the mornings or the evenings or the afternoons. Once I realized that there's a big difference, this whole energy managing thing made a big difference for me. So, for example, when I always do the workout analogy just because that is my side thing that I have to make time for and that always things get in the way. So, for example, if I don't work out early in the day, chances that I do it later are really low. Like they get lower and lower the later it gets in the day. So if I don't get to it in the morning, something always happens that, prevents me from working out, or my energy level is just really low in the evenings. I had a long work day. I'm just done and tired, and all I want to do is go home, eat, and then go to bed, basically. And I don't want to go to the gym anymore. But in the morning, I'm full of energy. I can. It's just different. Or also the type of work that I do in the studio. If I don't do my really creative, important mixing work, if I don't do that before lunch, everything just takes longer, and I don't my decisions are not that good, and my ears start to get tired, and I try to do that demanding, creative stuff relatively early in the day as well. And I do more of the administrative things or maybe revisions where I just check off something on a checklist. I do that later in the day where I don't have to be that present anymore compared to like the really important decisions I have to make. And I know you don't have that luxury maybe because you are in a day job, so maybe you cannot spend time before lunch or working on music, but maybe you can, and I know this seems like crazy to many people, but maybe you can get up an hour earlier and do it even before work, just a little bit of that. Or maybe you can get home from work, do your family things, whatever you do, take a break, rest a little bit, and maybe you find an additional burst of energy in the evenings when everyone goes to bed and you have an extra hour there just by yourself. Some people can do that really well. But like, just know yourself. Everyone's different. And maybe don't try to force the music time into an hour of the day where you just feel drained and you don't have energy, you can't focus, and because then you're just either not going to do it or you're going to be very slow or it's going to be frustrating. So the whole energy management thing is huge to me. And maybe during the week doesn't work at all. Maybe for you it has to be Saturday morning or Sunday morning or something like that. But try to experiment with that and think about if there is a time where maybe what you're now trying to get done in 4 hours can actually be done in 2 hours, just because it feels better, you're more excited about it, you're more energized, and maybe you can be more efficient that way. Do you have is your schedule based on your energy and your what you're good at certain times of the day, Manel?
Yeah, but I would say that I've found during this time, especially these last 2 years, trying different things and stuff, that I somehow need change. Like from time to time, I can have a routine for like 4 months or something, but at some point, I feel like things start to fail, and I need to kind of readjust things, especially in the morning. Like sometimes I wake up and I do my stretching and movement exercises, because another thing is that my schedule revolves around my back problems. So like I try to move a lot and change things so that I can, and sometimes I've started my day with movement and stretching. Sometimes I've started with a coffee and breakfast, and then I do the movement, and then I start working. Or sometimes just I go direct to start working and do the other things later in the day. So I found that for me, I think it's my mind likes when there's some sort of change, and it has to. I mean, not big things, because like at the end I end up doing the most of my producing and mixing time during the mornings. But and also when I have gigs in the weekends, normally that it's kind of chaos, right? Because like I have to spend like the whole weekend out there, and then on Monday I start late because I have to come to Madrid and stuff. So I have to move things, and I might end up mixing in the evening, because it is what it is. But I found that I think my mind likes that sort of movement from time to time.
Yeah,
but I use a calendar like you, because like you kind of taught me to use
it's like when you don't what gets measured gets managed is this whole saying, and if you see it in front of you and you measure what you actually spend your time on, and if you track that in some way, then it gets clear that, oh man, I always think I can get all these things done, but there's only so many hours. I guess I have to remove something. It's but it's interesting you say you need the change, and I think this will be many creative people. I've always kind of thrived in routine, just because I used to be complete chaos with no calendar at all. But the problem is I'm like how do I say that? I'm very easily distracted. So my ADHD and all of that gets in the way of getting anything done if I don't have structure. So by nature, I would be all over the place, and I would love to do whatever I feel like right now. I would see something that's exciting. I would do that right now and ignore everything else. But if I do that, I will just jump from thing to thing to thing, never really finishing anything. And so I need to put myself into like these routines and systems so that I can really focus and work and thrive. And so everyone's different. Many creative types really can't do that and need this like change, because otherwise it's just frustrating and not fun to them. Totally get that. So everyone's different, but still I think there can be a system to the change, because if you know yourself that you need this, you can look at your calendar once a week and just change it up for the next week. And you can look at things coming up. You can say, well, I have this gig there. I probably can't get up early, so on this day I will do it later. Perfectly fine. And you can still pay attention, though, to when, like during the day, you typically feel like doing certain things, and maybe you can have a general, very broad kind of schedule that can be adjusted spontaneously, but just some sort of rhythm that makes sure you actually do it. How rigid that is totally different for every person, but I think a little bit of structure is good for most people. On the whole prioritizing topic, I look at prioritizing from two different angles here, two different perspectives. And this is like a macro and a micro thing. So macro prioritizing means life in general. So what is important to me? So you have probably, job, maybe family, maybe kids, maybe health, social life, whatever, all these different things that are important to you, and then somewhere music fits in. And then you have things that you also enjoy, but maybe are not as important. Maybe you like to, watch a couple hours of Netflix. Maybe that is important to you. Maybe it doesn't have to be as much. Maybe you play a lot of video games. Maybe you do, I'm not saying what's good or bad. Again, you have to know that. But there's definitely certain things in your life, I think, in most people's lives that are not as important. So that's the big macro prioritizing. Like, what things do I really need to do in order to be happy and fulfilled and reach my goals in life? And what other things I don't need to do? That's the first thing. But then there's a micro prioritizing too. So once you are clear about the things you want to do, and you know that music is part of that, I want to do music and I will find time to make that happen, and I will eliminate other things. I will, sacrifice some other things so I can do the thing that's more important. Once you have that clarity, within the music block that you then have, there are important things you can do to move your songs forward, and there are not so important things that are basically almost a waste of your time. So this is kind of the micro prioritizing. So now let's say you have 2 hours or 4 hours to work on a song. How you spend those hours is really, really important. You can do things that really matter and move the needle, or you can do things that you're done with your music time and nothing has really changed. And so, and this is where the education part comes in and is really important, because I think learning the basics and having a solid skill foundation in music, but also the production side of things, if you're self-recording, which you probably are if you're listening to this really helps. Because if you know what the really important basics are when it comes to arrangement, songwriting, mixing, recording, all these things, then you can focus on those first and just ignore all the other things that are basically just distractions for now. Don't do the shiny object, fancy things that seem interesting to you, but maybe are not the most important thing right now, and focus on the real bottlenecks. Because everybody has a certain specific bottleneck right now that is holding them back. And for most people, this is not super advanced stuff. For most people, it's basic stuff. They just lack the knowledge to even know that, and then to know how to fix it. So let's say you really know everything about how to, record your guitar and how to edit it, and the basic tools, how to navigate your DAW, where to put the microphone. But maybe you have no clue about like arranging a song in a way that it works, or the instruments. Then no matter how many audio techniques you learn, no matter how many plugins you get, no matter how many fancy mixing techniques you learn, your problem will always be that you don't know how many guitar layers you should actually record, and what to pan left and right, and if you need harmonies or not, and how those things work together. And until you fix the arrangement issues, no amount of mixing or other things will actually move the needle for you and will help you make better sounding stuff. Or maybe you are an excellent songwriter, and all of that and the arrangement and all that is not your problem. And maybe you also spent a lot of time learning to mix. Maybe you took courses, maybe you had coaching, maybe you just did it for a long time. But you always ignored the pre-production, and you always ignored the playing technique while you're recording, or you've always ignored the recording technique at the source. You have a great song and you know how to mix, but you always work with shitty recordings, because you don't play them in a way that records well. You don't put the mic in the right spot. Maybe your acoustics are terrible, or maybe any other problems at the source. So this is going to be your bottlenecks. And everyone's different, but you need to know what the thing is that is currently the biggest problem, and then get the knowledge and the tools to fix that, and only then worry about the rest. It's always this 80-20 thing. There's probably like a 20% thing in your process that if you fix this, your result would be 80% better. And if you instead focus on the other 80%, you might only get a 20% improvement. And so figuring that out and getting the solid foundation of skills in the whole process, from writing throughout the music production process, all the things that you do yourself, is going to be very, very, very important. And this is why having proper education and not trying to learn all the things at once, but getting education with a structure, I think really, really helps people. And yeah, so these are my thoughts on this, basically. But it's really like that. It's like micro and macro prioritizing. So start by figuring out time to actually work on music, and then figure out what to do when you work on music.
Yeah, I think it's important. That's important to me also, because, like, again, at the beginning of my adventure with you, with the self-recording band, I would put time on my calendar, like, for example, like a block time for mixing, right? But that's too vague for me now. I need to put, like, I'm gonna work on the guitars of this song for a couple of hours, so that I have a clear step that I need to take. And the same happens once I'm mixing a song. Like, we worked together on making this system, these different steps that you need to take to mix a song, so that you don't get trapped on the compression of the drums at the very beginning of the song, right? So you have clear steps, and at some point you will get to the compression of the drums, or the thing that you are looking for, right? But you should not forget all the previous steps, and bit by bit, everything's gonna take you to the end of the thing. So I think, having a system is a very important part of this micro thing.
Yeah, totally. And the funny thing is, the structure and the guidance that you get from something like coaching, like you did, or from just coming up with a system for yourself, but just like the structure. The funny thing is that systems, they seem so uncreative and so terrible. And a lot of people that I talk to for the first time, when we start working together, they tell me how I'm afraid of all the systems and processes, and what if that takes away the creativity, and I don't really like that. I get it. But the funny thing is that those systems will actually make you more creative and less stressed, because now you don't have to think about what to do. You have to think about how to do it, and how to do it well, and try creative things and all that. But you don't have to think, well, do I now like EQ this, or do I compress this, or do I have to re-record, or the timing's off? Can I even mix this, or should I fix it first? And all this mental energy that goes to just figuring out what to do, if you can remove that and focus on just how to do it, and do it the best way possible, that just makes you so much more free and creative and less stressed. It's amazing. I wouldn't be able to mix at all for all the artists that I'm working with if I didn't have like a really structured way of working in my business. If I said, well, I'm such a creative mixer, special, whatever artist that I don't need it, I just get up and do whatever I feel like, and I open up my session, and then I'm creative for my artists. If I did that, that would be a nightmare. Like, I need to make sure that I respond in time to the people contact me. I don't forget about project deadlines. I have my deliverables in place. I have, all the organizing around having a studio business, and within that, there is a bucket of time for the actual creative work. And when I'm creative and mixing, I don't have to think about all of the other stuff, and I don't have to think about what to do now, because everything's taken care of. And if I didn't have those structures, and not a system that I go through when I work, when I mix, my mind would constantly be like, I would be mixing, and then I would think, oh, did I actually remember to send this other thing to this artist? And, oh, on this mix, they forgot to send me the vocals, or they wanted to re-record this thing. And I would be constantly distracted. And this doesn't work. I want to be in the flow. I want to be super creative, and I can only do that if I have certain systems that guide me through this. And yeah, you might not be doing it full time. It's not comparable to that. But it still applies, because you have other things in your life that are stressing you out and that are distracting you from being creative. And yet then you have the lack of experience and you don't know what to do next in your mix and all these things, and you can't really get in the flow of actually doing it and having fun with it because you're trying to juggle all these things. And a dangerous thing that a lot of people do then is, and it's a natural reaction, is that they try to shortcut it because they only have 2 hours. They want to get it done. And so they skip the basics and they jump straight to things to quote unquote finish the mix and ignore the prep work and the seemingly basic stuff. Like you just said, Manel, there are many steps that take you to the end result. And if you have a system, you can know that you will get to that. You don't have to do it now. You do it step by step. And many people, when they don't have the system, they ignore the basics. They move straight to the end of the process, which is very dangerous because if you skip the basics, you will hear that in the final result. And you're going to be very slow with all the rest of it because the session's going to be a mess. So if you don't prep the session accordingly, if you don't have a color coding that makes sense, you will not find what the drums and the bass are. You always have to look for certain things. Maybe you didn't take the timing part seriously, and then you wonder why it doesn't really groove and the impact's not there, and you think it's a mixing thing, but it's actually because the kick and the bass are not happening at the same time, or things like that, yeah, right? So the pros never don't do the basics is a saying, which is very true. So no matter how skilled they are and all the fancy things they can do, they will still start with a very basic volume balance. They will still make sure the performances are good. They will still make sure that if there's anything wrong with the source tracks, they fix that first. They will make sure that, any problems are corrected before they go to like shiny stuff to make it sound nicer. And this is the kind of way that gets you results, and it requires a little bit of patience, but it also requires this kind of process and system, because then you know that you will get to it. You don't have to rush it. You don't have to get to the end right now, because you know that if you work your way through it step by step, you will eventually get there, and you can trust this process. And so don't try to shortcut it just because you have little time, although that's a natural reaction, of course, to it. So, yeah. And then once you have a system that you can follow, where you make sure you know that if you just follow this, you will not miss any step. You will not skip anything important. You will have everything done from writing to mixing and mastering. Everything will be taken care of by you or someone else or whatever. Once you have that and it's clear that it works, all you then have to do is follow it. So you need to focus on that and do that one thing, follow that one path that is proven to work and that works for you, that fits in your schedule. You've done all the steps. Now you have to just do it and stick with it for a while, because it will take practice. It will take patience. The first mix you do will not be the best one. The first recording you do, it's like, just trust the process and stick to it and have the consistency and the focus on that one thing until you get really good at this. And again, here's the fitness analogy. Many people say they've been trying to get in shape for 10 years, but never were able to do this. Why is that? In most cases, if you look at it, it's because they started a diet of some sort and maybe a workout plan. It didn't give them immediate results. Maybe it was hard to make it work with timing, whatever. So they stopped until they found another thing that looks exciting, and they started that. They did that for 2 or 3 weeks maybe, and then they stop, and then they start a new thing. And they were never consistent with one thing, which is why they don't get results. There's a lot of people who will be like, low carb is the thing, and then they go to keto, and then they do carnivore, and then vegan, and then whatever. And other people don't track it at all. Then they do this kind of workout and that kind of workout. And the ones that are really good at a sport or in shape or whatever are the ones that just stick to a training plan and then and some sort of diet. And the funny thing is, all of them work. When it comes to like nutrition and exercise and all of that, it doesn't really matter what you pick. You got to pick something that is proven to work if you just follow it, that you want to follow. And then if you stick to it, it will work. Because there's data that proves it, and it's just different ways to get to the same result. And with mixing, it's the same thing. Your approach, or with production, music production, your approach might not be the same as mine. But once you have an approach that works, if you just follow it, until you get really good at it. And don't try to mix it up and do something new every 2 weeks because you're always going to start from scratch again and you never get really good at it. So just focus on the one thing, make a plan that works for you, that fits in your life, your personal situation, your taste, your style, your vibe when it comes to music production, all of that. Come up with a plan that works specifically for you and then follow it until you get really, really good. And there's this one acronym that I really like where FOCUS stands for follow one course until successful. And it's really that. And every time in my life, and I'm easily distracted, every time when I figured something out that works, and for whatever reason, I just stopped it and switched to something else because that was more exciting in the moment, I immediately stopped making progress. Until I realized it, went back to what worked, did more of that, and it works. It just does. So, yeah. And everybody's different. That's very, very important. So find your workflow, find your style. You might record live with your band, no overdubs, and you will do minimal editing and you like everything raw and whatever. Awesome. Find a system that works for that, follow it until you get really good in the style that you like. If you are very surgical, accurate, and you do a lot of layers and whatever, find a workflow that works for that. Different approaches to production, different approaches to mixing, it's all good. Just find one that gives you the result you want, that you can trust, find the confidence to really trust that, and then just follow it. And then when you get really good at this and it works for you, and then you get bored, baby, then you can add something new. And you can say, well, you know what? I've been doing that for a while. It works. It's great. But now it's time for something else. I want to explore a different genre, a different approach, a different style. Awesome. Do it. But get good at something first and get the confidence from those results. And then just develop your skills in different areas. That's totally fine. But I think you need the win and the confidence and the habits and the routines that all comes with the consistency. I think you need to build that first. Because otherwise you will always question yourself, you will never get true results, and you will always wonder, why is it that I just don't finish songs, that they don't sound good, while other people do? And just get a win in some way first, and then diversify your skill set, move to other things, try new stuff, but then you have proof of concept. You know that you can do it if you just focus on it, if you just prioritize it, if you put in the work. Yeah?
Wow.
Wow. No, yeah, and I know that a lot of people are going to struggle with this, and they're going to ask, yeah, it's all fine and good, but like, I still don't have time. but really, maybe listen to this again. Maybe write a couple of things down. There is a way for you to make it work too. Everybody can make it work somehow, and I know it because I've worked with very, very busy people, and they get it to work. And you might not have the same amount of time as somebody else. That's okay. Do whatever you can with the time you have. Have fun with it. Adjust your expectations and goals if you really can't find more time. Totally fine. But make the most out of that. And yeah, and get that kind of consistency, build those habits and routines, and then just trust the process and stick to it. Have the patience to do that, really. And if you look at anybody in music, whoever got good at this, if you look at your favorite bands, producers, anybody, no one ever just said, well, I only have half an hour here and there, and that's all I can do, and I don't have time. And that's how I did it. And then all of a sudden, this one song really got super successful, and here I am, famous artist or producer. That's not how it happened. They all, at some point, made time for it because it was important. They sacrificed other things. They put in a shit ton of work. And then that was what was leading to the results. If you look at all the overnight successes, you will notice that almost all of them have been 10 years in the making. The big jump seems to have happened like overnight, but they were preparing for a long time. They were putting in the work. They were practicing. They were figuring out their flow. They were sacrificing other things. It is not easy. That's just that anything worth achieving or doing is not easy. You will not become a really good athlete if you don't train. You will not become a very good producer if you don't practice. You will not become a very good songwriter if you don't write all the time. And depending on how much time you can find or make, you can adjust your goals to be higher or lower. It just has to make sense. It has to be the ratio, like the expectations and what you can put into it need to be aligned. And that's really it. And you just can't expect that you achieve a lot with like very little time, but also you have probably more time than you think you do.
Yeah, I believe that the expectations part of the equation is one of the most difficult ones
Mm.
because I think that a lot of people tend to set the expectations too high, I think. And I think the best is actually the other way around, like to not maybe too low, but normal expectations. And then if it goes well and you can get beyond those expectations, that's great. But if you think that you have this dream of becoming a world tour artist by using half an hour a day of your time to make songs, I mean, it's pretty unlikely. So you better change your mindset and, you know, maybe just accept what you are and what you can do in your situation.
Yes,
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
that it sounds less exciting,
Yeah.
but yeah, it is what it is, I think.
Yeah. At some point, all I wanted to do is have a successful band, and I put every minute of my life basically into that, and I sacrificed a lot. I dropped out of college twice. I never finished it because all I wanted to do is music. I'm not saying you should drop out of college, but like I just focused on music only. I didn't even know that the studio is going to be my thing. I always thought the band and music in some way is going to be my thing. I didn't even have a plan. I I didn't show up to school sometimes, although I was supposed to, because I wanted to do stuff with my band. And, I went on tour really early. I just sacrificed a lot of things and I made a lot of seemingly like stupid decisions because that's all I wanted to do and think about. And we accomplished quite a bit. We went on tour through Europe. We had a record deal. We did all those cool things. But then at some point, it was also clear to me that first of all, not everyone in the band always has the same goals and wants the same things. And then also in our niche, a hardcore punk band, like how far can you take that? Is that really a career? And if so, is it sustainable? Do I want to be on tour the rest of my life to make like barely make any money and then always struggle and always have this kind of tour life, never have a family and all of those things? So it at some point it dawned on me that maybe this is not the life that I want to live. And so I shifted, and then I discovered the whole studio side of things, which was so much fun to me. And I shifted focus on only that. And that was all I did, basically. And that was what actually worked for me. But that also means that now I'm still in a band. And I would love to play really big shows and I would love to have success as a musician too. But I also accepted that it's never going to happen because I don't put in the time to make that happen. We just play every once in a while. We have fun. And although I have the skills to make really great sounding records and our stuff sounds good, and although we have the skills to write good songs because all of us have been in bands before who had some level of success, like I think in our niche and what we do, we can say we are pretty good musicians. We are good. I'm a good mixing engineer producer. So technically, we could make stuff that has a chance of being successful. But I know it will never be successful because we don't put in the time to make it successful. So I can, with very minimal effort, at least make good sounding records. So that is something that a lot of our listeners would love to be able to do. But that's only because I've already mastered that part. I have those skills. I can use them now in my free time. But for me, the next step with the band would be to put in time into promoting it, booking shows, and all of that. It won't happen. Although I know how it would technically work, and although we have the material for it, I don't have high expectations because I know that it's not just having good music is not enough. There's a lot more that you need to do, and we don't do it. So I'm not surprised that it doesn't happen. And if you are at the level where you don't even worry about the success, you want to make a good record first, it's the same thing. Maybe you have really good songs, you've mastered that part, so that's why you can do that. But now the next step would be to make it sound good and to produce it really well. Is that important to you? You have to put in a lot of time into that and sacrifice other things. If it's not important to you, lower your expectations, have fun with the process, make cool demos, but don't expect it to sound world class because everybody who's able to make it sound world class, they spent a lot of time getting there. And yeah, it's just the expectations. But here's the good news. You can, with some structure and guidance, be faster and increase the likelihood of it happening when you get guidance, and when you don't try to figure it out on your own, and when you don't have to worry about what to do anymore, like we said earlier in this episode. So what we do, for example, here with our coaching, with the people in our self-recording syndicate, is that we create this plan with them, and we've changed how we do this now, so it always evolves. The way we do it now is we create a really, really intricate, like multi-page document of a roadmap that is specifically for the person, where we take a lot of time in the beginning when we onboard a new student into the coaching, or mentee, or whatever you want to call it, where we look at the goals, we look at the time available, we look at the expectations, we look at the current skill level, and then we map out this entire plan that works with the life of that specific person. And then we define milestones and daily actions and weekly actions, and then we help them implement that. So we make sure it's not overwhelming. We make sure it's a little bit challenging, though. We hold them accountable, and we make sure that they actually do the steps that will get them to their goal. And what they need to do is not worry about what to do, but only implement the things. So if I listen to a mix or a production and I say, well, the most important thing you can do now is learn to EQ, learn what like different parts of the frequency spectrum sounds like. If that is your bottleneck, do that. Here's what I would do. Let's focus on that until it is fixed. If I think your monitoring is the problem because you don't hear these things, let's fix that. If I think you need to organize yourself better because you always have excuses for why you cannot work on music, let's find a way to make space for music in your life. And we'd identify these bottlenecks and then help you work through it so that you can get to the result you want. And this is very different from trying to figure it out on your own. So if you're interested in that, you can go to theselfrecordingband.com and you can apply for a coaching spot. And then we could look at your situation, create this plan for you. If you don't love the plan, you don't owe us anything. If you love the plan and you want to implement it together, awesome, let's do it. But this is really the difference between what we do here and like an online course or YouTube or anything where you get like a lot of information and you need to figure out what to actually implement. And the alternative to that, I'm not saying it's the only way. There's always many ways. The alternative to that is that you do what I did or what some other people did, is that you give up most of your life and you just do the one thing for a long, long time, and you get all the information you can get from people you reach out to. You spend time at other studios, you find some sort of mentor, you maybe work under someone, you do all of that. It's gonna work, but if you have the talent, but it's gonna require a lot of time. It's gonna be super frustrating, and it's gonna be a very, very long journey until you figure it out. And that's totally an option. Up to you what you want to do. And then also, if you look at how most producers got their job, or most self-recording artists who are successful as artists and also produce their own records, how they did it, they've all worked with or under someone at a studio as an intern, as a runner, whatever, as an assistant engineer for a long time. And then they moved up and did their first own project or something. Or the self-recording artists that are successful, they worked with producers and engineers, learned a lot, and then at some point said, well, now I want to do it myself. Like if you listen to the Van Holzen episode, we just did not too long ago, Flo, the singer of Van Holzen, he was in the band. They worked with Phil, their producer, on a couple of records. And then at some point, Phil said, you know what? I've learned so much. I am actually getting really good at this myself. Let me co-produce the next record. And then now he's becoming the producer as well. And no matter how you look at it, all those people spent a lot of time. They learned from someone. They adopted some kind of structure. They followed that. They focused on it. And then they got good at this. And I haven't seen a success story of anyone really who was just like, well, I just sat there, tried to figure it out, and at some point I got good at this. There will always be the exception, but it's definitely going to take very long. And most people had their big moments when it all made sense once they worked with someone in some way, shape, or form. And so that's why we do all of this. And if you're not ready for this yet, and if you say, well, all good, but I don't want to hire anyone because I want to do it by myself, and it's just a hobby, and I don't have a budget for this, and so on, fine, totally cool, but don't put that much stress on yourself then. Lower the expectation, enjoy the process, learn, follow things like this podcast, watch videos, and try to at least identify what is the obvious biggest problem for you right now, and only work on that until you fixed it, and then move on to the next thing. And do that consistently every week. Find a little bit of time in your busy schedule. Be okay with the fact that there's no more time. eliminate everything that's not important to you. And if there's only a little time left, that's okay. That's all you have. Fill the time with the most important thing, get good at this, then move on to the next thing. Try to get feedback in between so that you actually can identify what is the most important thing, and work your way through that. And that is totally fine. So yeah, different ways to get there. But I just hope that this is not going to be the number one thing anymore for many people following us, because they will find a way to make their available time work for them, or to find more time. And I hope that I don't see in the forums we send out, I don't see that often anymore that people say, well, I have all these great ideas, but I just don't have time. Yeah. This is my hope.
The only thing that I wanted to add to this is that if you are listening to us and you listened how we talked about how we do our calendar and organizing, our weeks and stuff like that, and still you don't know what we're talking about and how does that work, you can send us a message. You can ask us on the comments on YouTube, and we can try to explain you how do we exactly organize our weeks to make time for our things.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Thank you. Yeah, maybe we should do that. Maybe we should show it to people. I'm always a little hesitant because, again, the comparison thing. If I showed people my schedule, it might look intimidating and overwhelming. Yeah. But it's, so don't compare it to what I do now. Maybe compare it to what I've done when I started with this. So maybe you can talk about this too. But yeah, we can definitely ask us, and we can get more into the details here. And then finally, this is not about us trying to make you hire us or do the coaching or whatever. The point is how you do it doesn't matter to me. The point is you need some sort of structure. And the whole reason why we did the coaching is to give people a structure that they can follow, which is not just an online course, but an actual structure, like a personal trainer, again, with the fitness analogy. And I also know that this is not for everybody. For some people, like I said, it is good to just do it as a hobby and be okay with that. And even if you work with us, you can also do it as a hobby. Not everyone who works with us is professional. Like many of them do it just as a hobby. But if you say like I said, it's just something that I don't want to invest in, and I don't want to hire someone, totally fine. That's not the point. The point is that you take away the message here of this episode and create a structure for you. And then also there's a different group of people who are ambitious, but the whole self-recording thing is maybe not for you. Maybe just parts of it. Maybe you shouldn't go to like a coaching or anything like that. Maybe you should just hire a producer. Do the classic thing, because it still obviously works. It's the best way still to make a record is to be an artist first, to have good songs to write, maybe even get help with the writing, whatever your weakness is, and then let other people at pros do the stuff that pros are good at. That's totally fine. So if you want to hire a producer, and you go to Manel, for example, he will take care of a lot of that stuff, and you don't have to make time for that on your calendar anymore, right? Yep. If you hire a mixer like myself, once the songs are recorded, you don't have to worry about the mixing anymore. If you hire a great mastering engineer, you don't have to worry about that anymore. If you go to a recording studio, you will have a structure by default because you book the time in the studio. You might have to take a week off of work or whatever, but you are at the studio, you get it done. And so for some people, the way to do it is, for many actually, the way to do it is not to do it yourself and just hire professionals. Or anything in between. If you look at the episode we did with Jason, who's a very busy entrepreneur, he says, well, I want to write songs and I want to record them on my own time, my own schedule at my home studio because I'm super busy and I just can't, go to studios and schedule time all the time. But I also know that I'm never going to be a pro mixer. I don't have the time to learn that, and I don't want to do that. So he decided to get the coaching and learn how to record and set up a home studio and do that on his own time. But then he sends it off for mixing because he says, I will never finish my projects if I try to mix and master myself. So maybe it's a hybrid thing for you. And all of those things are fine, but the clarity is what you need to get. And just know that there is a plan for you in your life and your situation. There is a way. You just have to find it and then stick with it and trust it and not move to a new shiny object before you even tried that one way that probably works for you. So send us a message. Yeah, that's a good idea. Send us a message about how you currently do it, what you're struggling with. Maybe there's a specific thing that you keep running into that despite all the things we mentioned, you still can't get it to work. Maybe, everyone's different. Maybe there's a specific problem that you have in terms of scheduling. Let us know and we can maybe tell you how we solved that. I just love to hear those stories because I'm interested in making the best content and the best coaching and all of that for the people that are actually listening to us and figuring out what the real world, real life problems are that you are struggling with and facing. Because I cannot compare my life to someone who has a job and who does music on the side. And so I need your input. I need your information. I need to know what is difficult for you, why you're struggling. And then I can try and find solutions and help you with that. So I'm really, really genuinely interested in doing that. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So what are you telling yourself by how you act right now? This is kind of my closing question for this episode. Because what your priorities are and what your goals actually are, and if they are important to you, it will become obvious what those really are if you look at your actions that you're taking. So if you look at your current calendar, even if you don't have one, but if you look at what you are actually really doing, that will tell you what you really prioritize and what you really value. And so it's easy to say, I want to be a musician. I want to have a record done. I want to mix this song. I want to do this or that. It's much harder to be like, yeah, and my actions also reflect that. I behave like I am a musician or someone who values that. And so what are you currently telling yourself through the actions that you take? Are those aligned with what you say your goals and priorities are? And have an honest look at that and just compare that. Because you will also subconsciously train yourself and form certain beliefs about you and what you can accomplish by just what you do every single day. You will get a lot of confidence if what you say you want to do is actually aligned with what you're really doing. That is where a lot of confidence comes from. And if you consistently break your own commitments to yourself, your own appointments with yourself, that lowers confidence. And subconsciously, you tell yourself, I will never make that anyways because I don't have time, and I will never be an artist. I will never have that record done because my life is so complicated and I have all these things. You subconsciously train yourself to believe that if your actions are always contrary to what you say your goals and priorities are. And once you start aligning the two, you will shift your mindset in a different direction. And you will be like, well, you know what? For the last 2 weeks, I actually did put in the work. I actually spent half an hour a day or 5 hours a week or an hour a week on music consistently. So I guess I can do something, and my results actually get better. And now I feel more like I am a musician, making things happen. I am getting good at the production thing. And that's where the confidence comes from. And confidence leads to more speed and efficiency while you work. It leads to more fun. It leads to less questioning and spinning your wheels. And it's just this positive reinforcement cycle that starts happening. And as long as you say you want to do something, but you don't act like it, it is a negative reinforcing cycle, and you move further away from your goals. So think about that and ask yourself if your actions actually reflect your priorities. Yeah. And think about how amazing it would be half a year from now if you'd be like, well, you know what? For the last 6 months, I found time consistently to work on my true passion, which is music. And as a result of that, I actually finished 5 amazing sounding songs. And I'm so proud that I can share them with the world. And it feels so amazing. And now I'm not just talking about being a musician and wanting to release an album or songs. I'm actually doing it. And I can actually now release it on Spotify. I can hit the publish button. It's out there. And I've finally done it. Like, how good would that feel? And it's only a couple of months away if you put in the consistent work. And confidence comes from an undeniable stack of proof that you are who you say you are. And so get that confidence by building the habits and the consistency, finding the time, and then ultimately you'll be super proud of yourself. And I believe you can do it. I know it. We've done it with many people, and you can do it too.
Yeah, agree.
Agreed. All right. So, Manel, what are we going to talk about next time?
That's a good question.
No, that I know already what we're going to do. But also, I wanted to say that we have some interviews lined up. That's actually what I wanted to say. So we have some interviews lined up with a guest that you suggested. It's going to be amazing. And then another episode with a self-recording band that I have scheduled. We're going to do some more case studies with our own students, so you get to hear their stories again. And if you have a suggestion for us, what you want to hear us talk about, again, send us a message. Let us know. And the final thing, you've noticed probably that in this episode, we are doing a little bit of a, more raw, less edited, faster approach to the whole content. So let us know if you appreciate that and if you like it. We removed the intro. We went straight to the episode. We get these comments a lot on YouTube, like, get to the point, a 7-minute intro is too long and all of that. Some people enjoy the stuff. Anyway, we now try to do it a little faster, get to the point quicker. Let us know if you enjoy that. Let us know if you missed the intro, if you should get it back or whatever. We'd love to hear your opinion. We're going to try to do it that way now. And always trying to make the show better, always trying to give you more value and to get to the point quicker. So, yeah, thank you for the feedback. And we'll see each other next week. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.